Well, today is a very special Sunday. It is Heart for the House Sunday. Is anyone excited for Heart for the House? Come on, is anyone excited for Heart for the House? We got to do a little bit better than that. If you are new to Rose and you're like, what is Heart for the House? Well, this is an annual moment in the life of our church where we get to come together and sow above and beyond our regular tithes throughout the year, give an offering that would accelerate and advance the mission and vision of our community. And today, at the end of this message, we'll have an opportunity to respond, and I'll give you all of the details. But we get to participate and do something that we've done for the last few years, which is give until it hurts just a little bit. And I think there's something so special about the tension moments in our faith with God. When it hurts a little bit to be obedient and respond, I think it's in those moments where God grows us and stretches us and takes us to the next level. So I'll give more details about that in just a moment, but I want to encourage every single person. I know many of you throughout the last couple of weeks have been praying about how God is calling you and asking you to participate, but I just want to encourage everyone to lean into this moment and not miss it. It's such a game changer for our community and for our church, and so I'm excited about it. It's going to be good, really anticipating what God is going to do and how he's going to move, but I know it's a little, I just want to give you a quick little update. It's a little chilly in here. If you're online, you're probably toasty. You got your fireplace going and all of that stuff. But here at Scotiabank Theater, it's a little chilly. I see some people wearing jackets. We're working on the heat thing. But someone said to me, there's nothing that warms the heart better than cheerfully giving. And so today we get to warm our hearts, and maybe that'll transcend to our bodies and keep us warm today. But we are working on the heat issue. But we're in a collection right now called Here's to the Dreamers. And we've been looking at these moments of our lives, our past, present, and today we're talking about our future, where God is so intricately and intimately involved in these areas and moments of our lives, these timelines in our lives. And really the whole premise of this is God is moving in your past, he is working in your present, and he is planning your future. And all of that shows us and points us to the fact and the reality that God is good. God is just good. And God loves us, and he cares for us, and he's gracious and kind and merciful, and he cares. He cares so much that he has the hairs of your head numbered. I do not care how many hairs are on your head. I just don't, because I don't. But God is like so obsessed with each of us that he's like, I want to know everything about them, that he has the hairs of our heads numbered and counted, like he did the work. And he designed us so specifically because he wants us to live a good life, because he is a good God. And so I hope you walk away today and from the other messages in this collection just being like, man, he's good. He's so good. And when we realize that God is good, it gives us the ability to live a full life, a rich life, to thrive and flourish and to dream. So this collection is all about God's goodness, and his goodness gives us the ability to dream. And he's so woven into our lives and our existence that it should give us confidence and courage to take steps of faith and risk it all for his kingdom and for his glory. So today we're talking about the future. I think the future is sometimes scary, sometimes exciting. But I want to look at a text today that I think is going to give us some principles and help us to establish a foundation that we could build our lives on that will allow us to thrive and flourish in our future, to trust God and what he's doing in our future, and to really understand more about kingdom future, kingdom purpose, and God, what he's trying to orchestrate and create in the present to make a difference in the future. So we're going to look at the book of Nehemiah. And I'm going to give you all the context, and I'm going to walk through kind of like an overview of it. But I want to go to the Bible and actually read. Now, I would love to read the first 6 chapters of Nehemiah, but then I would do that, and then service would be over. And so what I've done is I've taken just kind of some key moments that will give us that context and that overview for what's happening in the book of Nehemiah. So I'm going to read. The references will be on the screen. And then I will begin to explain kind of more about what's happening and pull some truths from this text that I believe that we can apply to our lives now that are going to make a difference in our future. So Nehemiah chapter 1, starting in verse 1 and then going to verse 4, it says, "The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. Now it happened in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Susa, the citadel, that Hanani, one of my brothers, came with certain men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who escaped, who had survived the exile." So right now, God's people, Israel, has been captured. Their land, their cities had been taken over, and they're under the captivity of the Persian Empire. But I asked concerning the Jews who escaped, who had survived the exile, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, "The remnant, those who stayed there in the province who had survived the exile, is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire." As soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept, and I mourned for days. And I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And then we jump to chapter 2. We're going to read through verses 1 through 8. It says, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, I took up the wine." And right before this, Nehemiah tells us that he was a cupbearer or a wine bearer to the king. So the wine was before him, and I took up the wine because he was the cupbearer, and I gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence, and the king said to me, or I had been sad in his presence, and the king said to me, "Why is your face sad? Seeing that you're not sick, there is nothing but sadness of the heart." Then I was very much afraid, because you had to keep it together in front of the king. I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" Then the king said to me, "What are you requesting? Get to the point." So I prayed to the God of heaven. This is serious. Before I answer you, I need to pray. So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you would send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it." And the king said to me, with the queen sitting beside him, "How long will you be gone, and when will you return?" So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. And I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, let letters be given to the governors in the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the fortress of the temple." So he's like, let me go, let me have a vacation. I want to go and fix this city that's been broken down. But not only would you let me go, would you give me all the resources, everything that I need in order to rebuild it, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. Now we jump to verse 16 in chapter 2. It says, "The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, and I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. Then I said to them, 'You see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision.' And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, 'Let us rise up and build.' So they strengthened their hands for the good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, 'What is this thing that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king?' Then I replied to them, 'The God of heaven will make us prosper, and we his servants will arise and build, but you have no portion or right or claim in Jerusalem.'" Now we jump over chapter 3 into chapter 4, verse 1 to 3. "Now when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, he was angry and greatly enraged, and he jeered at the Jews. And he said in the presence of his brothers and to the army of Samaria, 'What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore it for themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they finish up in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish and burned ones at that?' Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, 'Yes, what are they building? If a fox goes upon it, it will break down their stone wall.'" So they're mocking them and making fun of them. "So we built the wall. And the wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. When our enemies heard of it," this is chapter 4, verse 15 to 21 now. "When our enemies heard it, that it was known to us that God had frustrated their plan, we all returned to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half of my servants worked on construction, and half held the spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail, armor. And the leaders stood behind the whole house of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried burdens were loaded in such a way that each labored on the work with one hand and held their weapon with the other." So they got all these threats. So they're like, work, but be ready to defend yourself. And each of the builders had his sword strapped to his side while he built. The man who sounded the trumpet was beside me, and I said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, the work is great and widely spread, and we are separated on the wall far from one another. In the place where you will hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. So we labored at the work, and half of them held the spears from the break of dawn until the stars came out. Now when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arab and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall, this is chapter 6 now, by the way. There was no breach left in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors in the gates. Sanballat and Geshem, they sent to me saying, come on down, let us meet together at Hakaphirim in the plain of Ono. And they intended to do me harm. So I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work, and I can't come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? We jump now to verse 15 and 16. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. They rebuilt the wall in 52 days. And when all of our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. So we just got a really quick overview of what's going down in the book of Nehemiah. This is a moment in Israel's history where they had been taken over by the Persian Empire, and they are now living under the reign and rule of Artaxerxes, who is the Persian king. What happens is Nehemiah becomes cupbearer. This is his role in this moment of captivity. He is the one who brings wine to the king whenever he wants wine. It's a pretty cushy gig, pretty easy. Pour, give, pour, give. Pretty good job. And so this is his role in the Persian Empire. But he gets word back. He stays connected to where he used to live in Jerusalem, in Israel. He stays connected, and he gets word back that the whole city has been decimated. Not only did they come and take the finest young men and young women to teach them their ways and to raise them up in a Persian lifestyle, and then of course have people pay taxes and all of this, but they actually destroyed the city. So Nehemiah gets word, man, the walls have been destroyed, the whole city has been destroyed, there's still people there, and it's just like it's a whole mess. Nehemiah, as he gets word of this, it tells us that he began to weep. He began to weep and he began to mourn. So he is in emotional distress. He is absolutely undone. He's like, man, I knew it was bad. Like I knew, of course, we're here and we're in bondage, we're in shackles, we're enslaved to the Persian Empire. We have to do everything they tell us to do, and we've been scattered and we're all over the place. But they've actually had the audacity to destroy the city and tear down the walls. And what walls represented to a city was prosperity and safety, protection, the ability to flourish and grow and build something. So he's absolutely undone. He's broken up by this. And he begins to pray. He goes first to God, and he begins to recite this long prayer. We didn't read it, but basically he's like, God, we got to do something about this. God, you got to do something. God, you got to fix this. God, the situation is dire, and we need your help. God in this moment tells Nehemiah, hey, you're the one who's going to go. You're the one who's going to be the remedy to this problem that you see. In this moment of prayer, he gets courage, he gets strength, he gets everything he needs, and he goes to the king. And which is a dangerous task, by the way. If you're a cupbearer to the king, you have one job: pour wine. Make sure his cup is always full. But you don't break out of that. You don't ask questions. You hold yourself up high. You don't let emotions be shown or seen. But here Nehemiah, he's visibly sad. The king says, what's wrong? And he asks him to go and rebuild the wall. And not only that, he asks for all the resources to accomplish this rebuild. I think this is so interesting. So we're talking about our futures, right? And there's some truth here that I want to show you that will lay a foundation and an understanding. I think a lot of people are kind of going through life, living in the present, trying to figure out, what is my future? What is my purpose? And what I've seen is that in our North American culture, we primarily link our future and our purpose to our career and our profession. What God is asking me to do with my life is directly connected to my occupation. What this text shows us in Nehemiah is that your future, your purpose isn't actually only connected to your occupation or your profession. But rather than your future being tied to your profession, your future is tied to your burden. It's not just about the work that you do, but those moments where you weep. It's not about titles, it's about tears. It's Nehemiah, his purpose was more than a cupbearer. Could you imagine in this moment if Nehemiah was like, God, there's a problem, there's an issue, you need to raise up someone to rebuild this wall. And God said, Nehemiah, I need you to do it. And Nehemiah's response was, sorry, God, my profession is a cupbearer. Right. Nehemiah in this moment breaks out of his profession, out of his occupation, and then joins a new profession. Nehemiah became a construction worker. Nehemiah became an architect. Sure. Nehemiah traded his position as a cupbearer and became a construction worker. Why? Because it wasn't actually about what he was doing, it was who he was and what God had placed inside of him. See, I think so many of us are shackled by the fact that we think our future and our purpose and our fulfillment is only connected to our occupation. Now, I do believe that some people, they get to, use their profession as a way to fulfill their purpose, and you can always find purpose in your profession. I'm not saying that it's not connected at all. I'm just saying that it's not the only or the main thing that gives you your purpose and your direction in life. That sometimes God will put you in a position to do something different. That he'll put you in a position not for the job, but for the people who are there. Or that sometimes you will have a job, but your purpose will actually exist outside of that job. Or sometimes God will put you in a position to make a lot of money so you can use that money for something else. Or God will put you in a position to meet some great people and begin to network and build relationships so that together, outside of that profession, outside of that occupation, you could do something great. Now, God will open doors and he will give you opportunities to network, to make resources, to rally people to something through your profession, but it's not your only purpose. Here's how I know this. We have some incredible seniors in this church. I love them so much. Many of them are, come on, let's give it up. One of them said to me the other day, am I the oldest one in Rose Church? I said, no, ma'am, God is. God is the oldest one in our church. He is millions and billions of years old, so you don't got to worry about anything. But they're retired. They don't have a career or an occupation anymore. Is their purpose over? Far from it. They're so full of life, so full of purpose, so full of destiny. God's not done with them yet. It's not about their profession. I'll show you another example. What about young people, youth who haven't started? What about college students who haven't entered their career field yet? Are you telling me they don't have purpose? No, so much purpose. The young people today, they're shaping the church, they're shaping the world. They're walking out their purpose right now. So our purpose, although we may live out some of our purpose through our profession, is not directly or not only connected to that. What our purpose and our future is connected to is our burden. What burdens you? See, Nehemiah was a cupbearer, but what burdened him is the walls of Jerusalem had fallen. What burdened him is that his people had nowhere to go. It's so much deeper than ambition. It's so much deeper than career. It's so much deeper than feelings and emotions. It's like this conviction that God has put inside of us. And I'm convinced that whatever makes you uncomfortable in this life, that's your burden. And God gave you that burden to do something about it. It's funny because oftentimes when we see stuff in the world that makes us uncomfortable, what we do is we share it on social media and we say, hey, you should give to this cause. You should care about this cause. You should learn about this cause. Do you know why you cared about it enough in the first place to post it online? Because you were the one God is asking to do something about it, not your followers. So what if the next time you saw a crisis in the world that made you uncomfortable, instead of posting it on your social media, you just did something about it? Because that burden is not someone else's. We live in a culture of placing burdens on other people. And you know why? Because we're too scared to take that first step and actually carry that burden on our own. God's not asking me to carry your burden. He's not asking you to carry mine. He made me uncomfortable. And so I responded. He made you uncomfortable. And so you responded. It's about your tears, not your title. And I just think we get so caught up in, I got to get my dream job. And if I don't have my dream job, I'm just waiting for my purpose to start. And when I go to work, I feel unfulfilled, so I guess God doesn't really have anything cool for me. Man, that stuff is important, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Nehemiah is a cupbearer who becomes a construction worker. And it wasn't even about the construction. It was deeper than that. Your future is about your burden. We need a burden. We need something that makes us cry, that makes us weep. Nehemiah didn't just like, oh, that's so sad. Snot, like swollen eyes, like heaving, like he's just like unbearable, like he can't be consoled. He's weeping. He's distraught, like he's in distress. This is the kind of burden that God has already given all of us. But I think sometimes we're too busy moving through life at the speed of light to really sense what he's calling us and asking us to do with our lives. That maybe is connected to our profession, but maybe isn't. God wouldn't box you in like that. So I think like being a teacher is cool, being an accountant is cool, being a pastor is cool, but my purpose isn't to be a pastor. My purpose, my job as a pastor gives me a channel to fulfill my purpose. But I could fulfill my purpose if I wasn't a pastor. And you could fulfill your purpose if you didn't work where you worked. Because it's about your burden. Having a burden is so important because as we look at the book of Nehemiah, he's like, hey, can I rebuild this wall? Can I go? And the king says, yeah, you can have all these resources and you can have all the time you want. And he goes and immediately he is met with opposition. Immediately people are hating on him. The haters come out of nowhere when you have a dream, right? I'm going to do something cool for God. And they're like, no, you ain't. You're dumb. They come out of everywhere once you try to build something. People love to break you down when you're trying to build something. Let us be the kind of church that doesn't break down or destroy, but always builds up. And just so you know, you don't have to break down someone else's thing so you could build up yours. You could have two towers standing right next to each other. You know what I'm saying? So let's be people who build. But he's met by this opposition, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. And they like start making fun of them. If a fox stood on your wall, it would fall. You know, which is like pretty insulting. Like if someone said that about, man, if a fox stood on your church, it would fall. I'd just cry, you know. That's pretty insulting. It means it has no structural integrity at all. But these guys start mocking them and they make fun of them and they start rumors and they're making death threats and they're doing everything they can to distract Nehemiah and the people. They don't want them to succeed. There's this moment, we read it, where Nehemiah's up on the wall. Like it's high up now. He's up on the wall and he gets sent a message from these guys and they're like, hey, come down. He looks back, he's like, tell him I can't come down, I'm doing a great work. Why would I go down and get distracted and get preoccupied with nothing when God has this purpose and this calling and this assignment on my life? Listen, in your life, there will be so many things that try to take you down as you step into God's assignment on your life. There is an assignment on your assignment. The enemy doesn't want you to succeed in building out what God has called you to. So he'll send distractions, and these are people from inside. These aren't enemies out there. These are like his own people. They're like, you can't build that wall, and you're betraying the king, and you shouldn't even try, and we're going to kill you, and we're going to send other people to kill you. Hey, come down and just talk with us. We just want to talk. I can't. What I'm doing is way more important than coming and having a conversation with you. Sometimes you got to have boundaries and just say, hey, I'm not taking that meeting. Hey, I'm not talking to you. Hey, I'm too busy. I'm too called. I've got this assignment on my life. But the only way you can say, hey, I'm too busy. I'm doing a great work. I can't come down is if you have a conviction. And a conviction is just another name for a burden. When you're so convinced, man, God has called me to this thing. I don't care what you say about me. I don't care about the insults. I don't care about the threats. I don't care about the distractions. I'm just so focused on what God has in front of me that I'm not changing course. I'm just gonna, yeah, you could throw tomatoes at me. Yeah, you can say stuff about me. Post about me on social media. Say whatever you'd like. But I'm convinced that God has given me an assignment. I have a conviction and a burden that if I don't do anything about this, no one else will. So I know I'm not the Messiah, I'm not the Savior, but God has called me to do something, to build something in the future, and I'm not gonna let you stop me. I'm not going to let you stop me. What would it look like in your life if you're like, God, what's my purpose? And he gave you that burden and he gave you that conviction and you were so sure of it that for the rest of your life or until he told you otherwise, you just didn't let anything get in your way. You gave it all your energy. And guess what? This is exhausting work. I love the idea of building a wall as a metaphor for what God is asking us to build in our lives. Building a wall is not easy. Lifting bricks, cleaning up all the rubble, organizing all of the people to make this happen. This is hard work. But we do not need to be afraid of hard work and difficult work. What God has called you to will not be easy. Do not allow opposition to make you think, oh, I must be heading in the wrong direction. The opposition is actually a sign, keep going. Do not change course. Stay faithful. Stay committed. You are exactly where God wants you to be. It is inevitable that pain will come. It is inevitable that trials will come, that obstacles will get in your way, that people will try to take you down. As you build the kingdom of heaven, there is a spiritual battle. You are in a spiritual war. There are forces that you cannot see. There is an enemy named Satan who hates you. And he wants to destroy you. He wants to rob you of your purpose and your calling and your destiny. So he's going to throw all of this at you. Stay focused. Stay committed. You are doing a great work. And you do not need to come down. You can't come down because other people are dependent on you. This wall was not just being built for Nehemiah and those who were building the wall. It was being built for those who would experience the refuge and the safety and the peace of it. What's interesting too is in chapter 3, the whole chapter is about the people who built the wall. It's literally just so-and-so did this on the wall, so-and-so brought the nails, so-and-so worked on this door, so-and-so worked on this part of the door, so-and-so worked on this part of the door for a whole chapter. Do you know that your future is connected to others? That you cannot build what God is asking you to build on your own. There is no such thing as self-made. You needed people to get you to where you are, and you need people to get you to where God is taking you to. You need people, and people need you. All of us are connected. I think the beauty of the kingdom in this metaphor of the wall is if when I lay my brick and you lay your brick, and we all come and we lay down a brick, it builds a wall. But none of us on our own could build a wall. But each of us contributing, each of us participating, each of us doing what God has asked us to do together creates this work in the kingdom. But your future is connected to others. And one of for me anyways, the things I always think about in this story is that this wall wasn't just for the people who were building it. They weren't doing it for themselves. They were building the wall for the city. They were building the wall for the people. That we actually in the present get to build something that is going to impact someone else's future. The bricks we lay down today are someone else's wall of opportunity tomorrow, are someone else's wall of transformation tomorrow. The work that we put in today, it's not just, yes, we get to experience the wall too, we get to participate too, but the finished product is something that impacts and transforms and changes other people's lives. Our church isn't just about us. Our church is about others. Our church is about the next generation. Our church, we're building a church for the future. We're building a church for those who aren't here yet. We're building a church who aren't sitting in this room, who aren't watching online. We are so committed to those who don't even know that Rose Church exists yet. To those who don't even know that there is a God who made them and molded them, shaped them, and loves them and wants relationship with them. We can't just build something for us. It's not how the kingdom works. You can't tell me that you can just do this thing for yourself in the Bible. Like search the Bible and tell me that your life is all about you. You can't. But our life, whether individually or corporately, is about building something for other people. And lots of people would get to experience the peace and the prosperity and the hope and the reassurance and the life and everything that existed inside this wall once it was built. A lot of people would come and stand and say, man, I can't believe what happened here. This wall was torn down and now it's standing, and what an amazing job. And I get to go inside this wall and now I'm safe. A lot of people got to experience the wall, but not a lot of people got to say, I helped to build that wall. And I believe that God has called us to be builders, not just receivers of the blessing, but participants in creating what would one day be a blessing. And that's what this Heart for the House offering is all about. Each of us taking our brick and laying it down. And together, when every single one of us participates, whether they do a lot or a little, which is subjective, by the way, I think whenever we do something in obedience to God, it's a big deal to God. So don't worry about, oh, my gift is too small or someone else's gift is too big. What are you talking about? It's a big deal to God that you would even lay down that brick. So don't let the enemy get in your head about, oh, it's not enough or I'm not ready. We all have a role to play. And when we do, we get to build something beautiful and incredible for the future. God is future oriented. God is asking us to move into the future that he has for us, but you got to know that your future is directly connected to other people. And what God is asking you to build in your life is going to, in some way, inexplicably connect to other people and create opportunity and moments for them to connect to Jesus and live out their purpose. This is how the gospel is transferred through generations. This church has to be about the future. It is about the future. It's about the next generation. It's about our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids. Today, we get to lay down a brick. You know, a few weeks ago, we talked about altars. We get to place a stone. Last week, we talked about remove before flight tags on airplanes, how God was removing some things and activating us for purpose. But today, I just feel it so strongly that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We're doing this every year as a church, but I feel like this one is once in a lifetime. Every year is once in a lifetime because we don't know what God is going to do. It's crazy to think that this is our third one, that our first Heart for the House offering, I remember it so vividly. It was online. I remember a bunch went wrong with the online service. There was no worship lyrics in the video and a bunch of stuff happened. And I remember that year Rose Church ended up giving $17,000 to that first one. And that actually made it possible for us to get Rose HQ, which allowed us to expand and grow and do more. And then last year, our community ended up giving $43,000, which opened the door for us to bring on staff and do outreach. And I just can't help but think about, if that's what's happened in the last two, what is God going to do this year? Like when we get to this point next year and we look back on this moment, what will God have done? I don't know all the details, but I know it's going to be exceedingly abundantly more than we could ever think, ask, or imagine. I just want to encourage you today, whatever that brick looks like for you, to just pick it up and have enough faith to lay it down. And as a whole community, we get to build a wall together. And our brick today is a wall of transformation and opportunity and encountering Jesus for someone else tomorrow. So today we get to build the future. You know, God is building your future. God is building your future. You are in his hands. He has your life covered. And part of your future that he has planned for you is that you would join together with other people and do something so much greater and beyond something that just any one of us could ever do on our own. So I want to encourage you on your seats, or when you walked in, every single one of you got this Heart for the House envelope. Could you just grab that? Even if you're not putting anything in, just grab that and hold that in your hand. In a moment, we're going to respond and we're going to give for those who feel led. But I want to encourage you this year to not just give an amount, but to give and to believe God to move in your life. There is a section that says, we are believing God for. When you think about your future, where do you need God to move? Where do you need God to show up? When you think about the pain in your life that you need him to heal, where do you need God? Now, I do not believe that as you give today, God will immediately answer this prayer. But I do believe that God rewards the obedience of his children. And why would we not believe him to move in our lives as we sow in faith, believing for him to move in other people's lives? So I don't want you to just give for the future of those who are not here yet, but to give to your own future as well. Sow a financial gift, but also sow a seed of faith into your own life, into your children's lives, into your grandchildren's lives. Where do you need God today? Write that down. I got 4 things on my card. And as I give today, as Roberta and I give today, we're believing that God is going to answer every single one of these prayers. And even if he doesn't, we're just happy to be a part of what God is building. But in a moment, here's how this is going to work. This is new to us, so I get it might feel a little uncomfortable. By the way, if you don't have one of these, just throw up your hand. Our welcome team will pass them around. But there are boxes around this auditorium. There are 4 stations. We're actually going to stand up. We're going to walk, and we're going to give our gift. If you're here with your family or your spouse or whoever you're with, I would encourage you to sow your gift with them, to do it as a family. In fact, if you have kids, I would bring them in on this process and teach them about kingdom generosity and building for the future, so that when they get to an age where they're able to contribute, they're not even questioning it. They've already got it. It's a great discipleship opportunity. But I want to encourage you to do this with your family. But we're actually going to stand in a moment, and we're going to actually go and we're going to sow. We're going to give. And I just believe there's something profound about leading your soul with your body, about actually getting up and coming to the altar and sowing your gift. I believe there's just something so personally profound, but also something so encouraging about seeing our entire community respond. Now, whether you gave online already, if you're giving online in just a moment, if you're going to use the debit machine after service, if you're watching online, I want you to participate in this as best as you can too. But even if there's literally nothing inside, like we gave online, if there's nothing inside, it's not about what's in the envelope. It's about what your heart has already done or what your heart will do in response to what God is asking you to do. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask you to stand. We're going to respond. Actually, let's all stand. If you're at home, would you stand too? I know that might be a little uncomfortable, but just stand all around this room. I'm going to pray. Team is going to play a little bit, and we're going to go right into worship after this moment. If you don't tithe, if you don't regularly give, this could be the day you start. Maybe today as you sow, it's the beginning of your giving journey, the beginning of your obedience to God when it comes to your resources and your finances. But I'm just believing God to move in power today and for us to be able to create something that's going to impact people in the days to come.